Hey everyone, and welcome back to a new video. We've been hearing a lot recently about the new Dawnbringer Crusades campaign in Age of Sigmar, and as those begin to sally forth with the launch of the first book in the series, Harbingers, it's almost getting time for the refreshed Cities of Sigmar faction to hit shelves. In fact, we got a bunch of incredible model reveals recently, and the announcement of an army set coming very soon. So with that in mind, I wanted to use this video to take a closer look at the factions, talk about the new models and the models we haven't seen yet, and suggest what we'll likely see from this faction as we move through the Dawnbringers campaign. If you're interested in that, then let's jump right in. For those of you who aren't aware, the Cities of Sigmar have technically been around for a while in Age of Sigmar, but not in what I would call a pride of place. They represent a mix of Elvish, Dwarden and human followers who align with Sigmar and the Order Grand faction. In reality though, they've sort of been a mashup of older Warhammer Fantasy models that haven't been refreshed in quite a while, and they're starting to show their age. Hence the refresh we're getting, and I've got to say that they are getting one hell of a glow up this year. For your main battle line choice, you've got the Free Guild Steelhelms. These are the doughty and disciplined rank and file warriors protecting Sigmar's territories, and while they're probably not much of a match for some of the bigger Uruks, Ogres and other beasts they're likely to come across, there'll likely be enough of them to make up for it. On the flip side of that are the Free Guild Cavaliers, Age of Sigmar's reimagining of Empire Knights, and certainly some of the heavier elite troops in their roster. What I really love about this unit in particular is the personality apparent in each model. They remind me a lot of the Bretonnian questing knights in so much that each looks like a hero in their own right, and I can see many players, including myself, grabbing a few units of these and really going to town with kit bashing and conversions. Then we've got the two hero units, the Free Guild Marshal and the Alchemite Warforger. The Marshal is a really interesting one because he's accompanied by a relic envoy whose sometimes macabre accompaniments are said to offer eerie advice and spectral scolding. I'm not sure what that means in terms of rules, but I really like that the studio team haven't just rammed holy Sigmar magic into this faction. It's far more gothic and superstitious, and that's really going to help set the faction apart from the other Grand Order armies. The Marshal model himself seems to come with plenty of options, including a few different faces, and in my view, regardless of the look and feel you might want for your Cities of Sigmar army, I think it's great to see that we're getting so much choice with so many of the models these days. That said, we'll have to see how good they are when something as big as Kragnos comes calling. Looking to the Alchemite Warforger, this unit is more of an enhancement specialist, strengthening the armour and weapons of the warriors around him. He reminds me quite a bit of wizards using the lore of metal in Warhammer Fantasy, and again I think there's a lot of subtle inspiration happening here. More so, it gets me quite excited when I think that Cities of Sigmar is also made up of those older Elvish and Dwarden factions that could also be reimagined in some really cool ways, but we'll come back to that later. Now, all of those units are coming in the Cities of Sigmar army box, which doesn't have an official release date yet, but it seems like it's a couple of months away, at least given the wording in the Warhammer community article. While we're talking about that box, it would be the first opportunity for us players to get our hands on these models, along with a special version of the battle tome and the War Scroll cards for the 54 units included in the faction. I will come back to that in just a moment, but I do want to talk about the most recent model reveal for the Cities of Sigmar, Talia Vedra, Lioness of the Parch. This is another stunning model from the Games Workshop studio team, and it's another great example of why I love Age of Sigmar. The models are simply phenomenal, and having been a fantasy player, there's always something uncannily familiar and jaw-droppingly new with everything that comes out. Talia is one of the main character units for the Cities of Sigmar and leads at the heart of their army in Akshi. That instantly makes me wonder if there's a counterpart for Giran, where the other massive Dawnbringer Crusade is marching from in this upcoming campaign. However, given we know one succeeds and one fails, I think we probably might not get a chance to meet them either way. What draws the attention instantly is Talia's Manticore, Infernadine, and it's certainly an upgrade from the Chaos one we've had for quite a while. I can already think of one kit bashing idea. It's huge, it's dangerous, and it has that presence that all great Age of Sigmar centerpiece models have, and it's going to look even better when it's going toe to toe with other epic heroes like Gobsprak and Nagash. It's fair to say though that Talia herself looks pretty awesome. Being a former mercenary, she's got a rather grizzled appearance, but comes with a helmeted option if you're more inclined. She also comes with not one but 4 magical weapon options: the Sword Parched Tongue, the Great Axe Justice, the Heavy Mace Warmaker, and the Hammer of Zeal, each of which was claimed from a traitor Talia personally slew in her rise to power. And if that wasn't enough, she also uses the mummified heads of those 4 traitors to adorn her riding seat, a stark warning to those who would threaten her or her cause, and another example of this eerie aesthetic that flows through all of the Dawner models we've seen so far. Now, while Talia herself isn't in the army box, I feel looking at everything we've seen so far, this is a fantastic start to the refreshed Cities of Sigmar range. They might be the mortal warriors of Sigmar's realms, but they're certainly not trivial, and I think we're about to see how impressive they are as we progress through the Dawnbringer series. Again, we know that at the heart of this campaign, the Twin Tau Crusade will see two Dawnbringer armies march out, one from Akshi and the other one from Giran. One will fail, I suspect Giran's, and the other will succeed, and that will presumably see the establishment of a new settlement, and potentially a new setting for at least the remaining chapters of this campaign, if not part of the ongoing AOS story. If that settlement is in Giran, it will likely play a role in the war between Alariel, the goddess of life, and Nurgle, the chaos god of decay. If the settlement is in Akshi, it could become a target for Khorne, who has a strong presence there. Either way, it's worth thinking about because that might reveal what other new models might be on the horizon. And speaking of new models, I want to talk about the rest of the Cities of Sigmar roster. Games Workshop have told us that there are 54 War Scroll cards coming in the army box, which is obviously a lot more than what we've seen. However, the faction is currently using older Warhammer Fantasy models, and if you look on the Games Workshop website, there's around 50 odd sets to choose from. Now, the way Games Workshop have been talking about future updates, it seems pretty clear that there are more new models on the way. However, it's also clear that there aren't another 50. So while I hope we get a good number of new releases, Cities of Sigmar will still lean somewhat on the very old ranges we have currently, and that is worth bearing in mind if you're looking to start a new army. But what new models could be coming next? Well, if we look at the army box set a little more closely, we can see these rule cards, and on them it references human orders, elf orders and Dwarden orders, which seem to be military instructions you can give certain units to gain advantages and such, like Astra Militarum in Warhammer 40k. But the very fact that they've got this mechanic suggests to me that they'll likely bring out a handful of new elf and Dwarden units, and for two reasons. Firstly, that's clearly the vibe they want to project with this army, humans, elves and Dwarden working together in the service of Sigmar. And it would be really odd if the design team just stopped at the human part of that alliance when it came to new model releases. Secondly, if the faction plays towards the idea of mixing different types of units together, players are going to want exciting new models to entice them, and I can't see that happening if they've got incredible models like Talia and the Free Guild Cavaliers backing up 15-year-old High Elves. It's not a good look, and it doesn't inspire players to part with their cash. I might be wrong, but it seems pretty likely that we'll see a range of new models that reflect the breadth of the alliances that sit at the core of the Cities of Sigmar, and my hope is that it's not just battle line units, but hopefully a few monstrous and heroic additions too. So that's a brief look at the upcoming Cities of Sigmar range, which is shaping up to be an exciting release for all Age of Sigmar fans, new and old. But what are your thoughts on what we've seen? Have you been persuaded to start a new army, and what else do you think is coming down the pipeline? Let me know in the comments section. And as always, a big thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed the video, please do click the like button and subscribe if you'd like to join me for future Warhammer videos, and I hope you'll join me for my next one. Until then though, take care.